The murder of Marianne Shockley, the Georgia University professor whose death still remains a mystery for many. Modern man has caught himself in a web of drugs, where temporary relief sounds the absolute perfect solution against all problems. A few pills of ecstasy can take you away from the world of reality and can bring you in your own world, where nothing but your imagined reality stands before you, bestowing you a few moments of relief from the harshness of the realistic world. But what if the quest to seek and escape turns into a dark adventure, which eventually ends at death? Today's case is a tale of one such individual who was out there to relax herself, but things became twisted right from the time when she decided to seek escape. Welcome to AF Crime, the channel that brings you fascinating crimes all around the world. If you're interested in this kind of content, this channel is for you. Make sure to like this video, click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to keep you updated on our recent uploads. Now, let's get right into the video and investigate more about the mysterious death of Marianne Shockley, who was known as a celebrated professor, but whose end became a mystery for the cops because nobody could give a solid reason behind her sudden death. It was the 11th of May, 2019, and the Doc Shock, whose real name was Marianne Shockley, had just winded up with another school year. There was no big deal for her because every year she had seen many faces coming and going into the entomology school of the University of Georgia, where she was teaching for the past few years. She knew that she wasn't like others who took their jobs as a way to sustain their lives. But for her job was inspired from her passion to know more about the insects. She was among one of the few brilliant minds, as she was researching extensively about entomophagy. Well, if you don't know that, I must tell you that entomophagy is a type of insect eating which is practiced by various cultures across the globe. She was positive about influential results which would bring her into the mainstream of various scientific communities. Marianne was the kind of individual who had given most of her life to science because she loved science. That was one reason behind why she hadn't started a family as of yet. However, she was seeing a guy named Marcus Lillard. Lillard became her acquaintance from a bar where she first met and exchanged their information upon a few shots. Soon, Marcus started meeting Marianne after her university whenever she got a few moments among her tight schedule. May 11, 2019 was one such day where both of them were sitting in front of each other and were sharing their favorite bar jokes at a local bar. Marianne was quite excited today because that was the day when the school was ending, which meant no new classes for days. So she had all the free time in her hands. The couple eventually stopped at the Milledgeville restaurant during the day and finally came to Aubrey Lanes. The sun was already setting when Marianne and Marcus had their dinner at the Aubrey Lanes, despite enjoying her freedom the whole day. Marianne felt that something was lacking. She wanted to spend her time in a hot water pool while relaxing herself. She asked Marcus whether he knew anyone with a hot water pool in the area. Marcus told her about Clark Heindel, who was a former psychologist and now a yoga instructor. Marianne agreed to go to Clark's house for the sake of having some good time. Marcus called Clark and informed him about the couple's arrival in a few moments at his place. Soon, the couple arrived, and Marcus introduced Marianne to Clark. The two bonded well together as both of them belonged to academia. At first, the three decided to have a jamming session together where Clark played the accordion and Marcus was on conga while Marianne sang along. She felt really lighter and thought that coming to Clark's house was really a great idea because it lifted her diminished spirits. Clark then shared the ecstasy pills with both and took a few himself. The purpose was to relax while staying away from the realistic world for a while. Clark then took them to the hot water pool for the purpose of relaxation at 9 p.m. At this point, Marianne was losing control of her body. She was not much of a drug person, so the pills were really working on her and everything around seemed to be revolving round and round, yet she was enjoying this dizziness. While all three of them were relaxing in the hot tub, Marcus felt the need to go out and spend some time alone. Marianne seemed clearly upset from Marcus's decision because she wanted to spend this time with Marcus, who was her love. So she tried to stop Marcus from going outside the tub, but he still went into the forest for self-exploration. After a while, he came back from the woods. He was now feeling quite active and wanted to share that with Marianne. Right when he reached the farther corner of the pool, he was surprised to see Marianne's head slumped in the pool. This was a disturbing sight for him. At first, Marcus thought that Marianne had simply passed out, but upon reaching her, he found that she was no longer breathing. This shocked Marcus to the core because it had only been a few moments since he had left. He immediately pulled Marianne out of the pool, and in doing so, Marianne suffered from a gash on her forehead. By now, Clark, who was swimming at the farther corner of the pool, also found what had happened and suggested Marcus to call 911 immediately because it was not a good sign as Marianne wasn't breathing. Marcus, however, thought otherwise. He believed that it was too early for them to inform the cops and Marianne could be brought to consciousness by giving her CPR, so he tried doing CPR on her. Marcus further shook hydrangea branches on her body to revive her, as he was informed by Clark that it was a very sacred tribal practice to bring the dead back to life. At last, he failed to bring her back as she was already dead by the time the cops arrived at the scene. One strange thing which Marcus had done, even after performing the CPR, was not calling 911 directly. Instead, he called multiple people from Clark's phone to gain any sort of help, but gained nothing. At last, he called his ex-wife and informed her about what had happened at Clark's house. He further instructed her to call 911, and it was almost 1 o'clock when the cops arrived at the scene. The Baldwin County Sheriff arrived soon after the call was made, along with teams of other cops. They were quick to guess that something was wrong in the whole environment of the house. Many said that there was an eerie feeling inside the house. The medical team found out that it had been approximately 2 hours since Marianne had died. Now, this was the most problematic part. When the investigators inquired from the chief suspects, i.e. Clark and Marcus, about why they hadn't informed 911 earlier when her dead body was lying there, both of them couldn't answer that since it was a valid question. With the approval of the county sheriff, Bill Massey, the cops separated both Clark and Marcus from each other for the sake of investigation. They handcuffed Marcus at the back of a patrol car while Clark sneakily walked inside the house, while the cops were still asking questions from Marcus. They heard a loud noise within the house. It was identical to the sound of a gun fired. When a team of cops rushed inside the house, they found that Clark had killed himself and had left a suicide note before dying in which he had apologized to the family of Marianne. The suicide letter said that, "I don't know what happened with Marianne, but it was on my watch, and I am so sorry to her family and friends." This letter divided the opinions of the investigating team members. Some of the individuals believed that Clark's suicide was heavily influenced by his guilt that he couldn't save Marianne's life under his watch, where a section of the team believed that it was due to the fact that Clark was the real culprit who had killed Marianne, so he had killed himself to avoid the extensive investigation which followed his confession. Yet, this belief was not supported on a wider level. In fact, the county sheriff, Bill Massey, himself said that it didn't seem that Clark was a potential culprit behind the death of Marianne, as he was a well-known, reputable person in the locality. This was also followed by the opinion that the cops themselves have cleared Clark a few moments ago, before his suicide, as he couldn't possibly murder Marianne since he was meeting her for the first time and there was no motive involved behind it. Later reports revealed that the death of Marianne turned out to be a domino effect for Clark, who was already dealing with his license cancellation as a psychologist and the loss of his 6-year-old son due to cancer. It was perhaps due to these incidents that when Marianne died, Clark could no longer forgive himself for this loss. With Clark's unfortunate death, there was only one single person now who knew the truth about the death of Marianne and what had happened there. It was no one else but Marianne's boyfriend Marcus himself. The police now became more cautious as they couldn't afford to lose the lead they got in the form of Marcus, so they decided to disclose the news of Clark's death to him. After hearing it, He became very upset at first because he had lost two of his loving friends on the same night. Initially, he believed that Clark must have died due to his association with Marianne's death, but soon he changed his statement and expressed that it could not be him as he was very kind. A similar statement was seen coming from Marcus's son Carson Lillard, who expressed that Clark could never hurt anyone as he was too kind, while the same couldn't be said about his biological father because he had a history of aggression in the house in front of him. From these testaments and Marcus's continuously fluctuating statements, the task of extracting out information was handed over to Michael Mabin. Mabin was a special agent in the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. He clearly mentioned to Marcus that all he wanted to hear from him was raw truth and nothing else. In front of Mabin, Marcus once again changed his statement that he laid down in the woods for a while the day when the three friends were enjoying together and he stepped into the woods. He further said that this action of his was inspired from the renowned documentary The Last Shaman. This was kind of confusing because earlier he had said that he was simply out there walking into the woods. As the cops were trying to link all the pieces of the puzzle together, Sheriff Massey received a call from an ex-girlfriend of Marcus who revealed that Marcus had a habit of choking women during sexual intercourse, and he had choked her on multiple occasions. She further stated that one time he had choked her to an extent that she fainted and fell down. Marcus called it an exaggeration in the beginning. However, soon other women testified the same statement. The interesting part of the case was that the forensics revealed that the cause of the death is asphyxia or strangulation. Isla Crippen, who's the sister of the deceased, also believed in the veracity of the statement that Marcus had choked Marianne. She, however, explained that perhaps both of them were involved in a sexual activity, and this was how it ended, as Marcus had a habit of choking women on multiple occasions. In light of these accusations, Marcus was charged with Marianne's murder on the 13th of May 2019, right after a day when the cops had found Marianne's body on the 12th of May. His indictment followed in March 2021, where other charges like assault, felony involuntary manslaughter, and impulsive behavior were made a part of the trial, which began on April 4th, 2022. Marcus pleaded innocent, and his attorney, Matt Tricker, gave some valid reasons which are equally significant. He highlighted before the court that Marianne was heavily under the influence of alcohol and drugs, so it's possible that she might have hurt herself while stepping out. Tammany Coffey and Nancy Malcar, who were hailing from the prosecution, went against this statement and expressed that Marianne's death was an outcome of Marcus's reckless acts. They further produced three other women who accepted that they fainted during intercourse due to Marcus's excessive choking. Yet one thing was quite strange, that the hyoid bone, which breaks firstly in the cases of strangulation, was still intact. The investigators answered that it might be possible that a frail person had tried to strangle a stronger one. Only then there were chances of the hyoid bone staying intact. This once again turned all the attention towards Clark, who's no longer there in this world. However, soon these assumptions died when the idea that somehow the death was a result of heavy drugs and alcohol which went wrong. The jury passed their decree on April 7, 2022, and found that Marcus was not guilty of the death of Marianne. Judge Alice Burleson passed a decree that though Marcus wasn't involved in the murder of Marianne, yet he had violated the rules for probation, for which he was ordered to serve in prison till October 2030. At present, Marcus is in the correctional center and is serving the sentence given to him, though he still believes that it was not him murdering his girlfriend, and he has a clear conscience because whatever happened was no one's but the fate's flaw that changed everything for the three of them that night. Well, by now you must be able to know that the death of Marianne still remains an unsolved mystery, where no one is able to find a satisfying answer for her death till date. Well, that's all from today's case. Tell us what you think about this in the comments below. Also, if you feel that this case was an intriguing one, like this video and share it with all your friends. Also, subscribe to our AF Crime channel for finding more shocking tales around the world. And if you have any criminal case that you'd like me to investigate, share it in the comment section below.